Barakatuh. I hope everyone is well. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa afdalu salatu wa atammu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma anshur alayna rahmatak wa anzil alayna hikmatak ya dhal jalali wal ikram. So today is the hikmah that I've been talking about, that I think is one of the most essential from the entire series. And it's the culmination of what we've spoken about for the last couple of weeks about dissatisfaction of the self being the source of spiritual transformation. That this is the starting point. This is the launch pad for transformation inwardly. So let's jump right in on page 27. This is hikmah number 35. Ibn Ata'illah, he says, أصل كل معصية وغفلة وشهوة الرضا عن النفس. The source of all sin and heedlessness is being self-content. وأصل كل طاعة ويقظة وعفة عدم الرضا منك عنها. And the source of all pious action and awakening is a lack of being self-content. وَلَأَن تَصْحَبَ جَاهِلًا لَا يَرْضَى عَنْ نَفْسِهِ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنْ أَن تَصْحَبَ عَالِمًا يَرْضَى عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. To associate with an ignorant person who is not self-content is better for you than associating with a scholar who is self-content. فأي علم لعالم يرضى عن نفسه وأي جهل لجاهل لا يرضى عن نفسه. And he ends with the rhetorical question, what knowledge is there in a self-content scholar? And what ignorance is there in a non-self-content, unlearned person? So there are a couple of statements here. Of course, he's juxtaposing opposites. And this is one of the things in the Arabic language where they'll repeat a couple of words that seem to be synonyms. But actually that waw is not atf. That's not like just a normal and, right? So rather, this is atf al-sabab ala al-musabbab. So joining the cause with its effect. So what that means is that the actual and the real cause is mentioned last. So the first thing that's mentioned is the thing that is the outcome, right? The result that's going to happen. And then if you keep digging and you keep going, by the second or third thing, then you get the root cause. So with that in mind, let's go back and read it again. So it says here, أصل كل معصية وغفلة وشهوة. The source, asl, the source, the origin of every disobedience. So disobedience, is that the cause or is that the outcome? That is the outcome. Jazakallah khairan. That is the outcome. Somebody who is in a state of disobedience, why are they in a state of disobedience? Then there's a wa. So wa, normally when you say and, it's a conjunction in English, right? In Arabic we say atf. So you think that these three things are all equal, but they're not. All three things come together, but one is causing the other. Every ma'asiyah, every disobedience, wa ghafla, and every heedlessness, wa shahwa. So Dr. Tariq, to simplify it, he translates two of the words, right? But if we want to go back to the Arabic, every disobedience and every heedlessness, every indifference, wa shahwa, and every passion, right? So following the desires causes you to be in a state of heedlessness. Being in a state of heedlessness causes you to do what? Disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are all three caused by? A single chain. All of this comes from one origin, one asl, which is ar-rida an nafs, being self-content. So now it sounds like that's something very serious. وَأَصْلُ كُلِّ طَاعَةٍ, and the origin of every ta'ah, every pious action. وَيَقَظَ. Notice these are opposites. The opposite of disobedience is obedience, is ta'ah. So we have ma'asiyah, we have ta'ah. Then again, there's ghafla. Ghafla is a person who's in a state of heedlessness. The opposite of heedlessness is yaqadha, being in a state of wakefulness, right? Being awake. Wa yaqadha. Wa iffatin, right? And every virtue, right? So that means being in a state of virtue, wanting to do good, right? Not following your desire causes you to be vigilant, to be awake, to be in a wakeful state. And the person who is in a wakeful state is aware. And the one who is aware is able to make the right choices. And when you make the right choices, now you're in a state of atta'ah. Now you're in a state of obedience towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how is this all facilitated? Again, by a single asl, by a single origin. What is that origin? Ar-rida minka anha. That is a lack of being self-content. It is a lack of being self-content. And to associate, so now he has made these two statements, to associate with an ignorant person, associating with an ignorant person. And this kind of statement, for many of us, will come as a surprise. Like, that can't be right. Initially, it seems like something foreign. To associate, it's better for you to keep company with an ignorant person who is dissatisfied with himself or herself than to keep company with a learned person who is satisfied. That's how dangerous self-satisfaction is. In fact, he says, well, that person might appear to have a lot of information, to have a lot of knowledge, to be an alim, to be a scholar. But ayyu ilmin, what knowledge does that scholar really have if he is self-satisfied? And then similarly, the person appears to be ignorant. But what ignorance does that person have when he's dissatisfied with himself? So all of this centers around one key concept, which is the danger of self-satisfaction. So he identifies in this hikmah the need to do something and the need to avoid something. So there's some things which you have to do, and there are some things that you need to avoid. And once you've mastered them, then you've found the source of ma'asiyah, disobedience, and you've also found the source of ta'ah, the source of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The nature of obedience and disobedience is important because in order to tread the path towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you first have to go and attack the motivations of the human being at the deeper level, right? Because otherwise you're looking at the fruit, you're not looking at the root cause behind it, right? And as we mentioned, this wow is al-sabab al-musabbab. So that means that we're joining the cause to its effect. And the cause is very simple. Thinking that you're not a work in progress anymore. Thinking that you're great, that I'm doing just fine. I'm all that and a bag of chips. You know, I'm trying my best. Trying my best is a good attitude. And sometimes people, they say it in different ways. You see this sometimes when it comes to salah, because many of us are negligent in performing all of our salawat. And there are some people, when the topic comes up, they say, I hope that I'll be able to perform all my salah in their time soon. I have the intention. I'm working on it. And this is something which is aspirational, and it comes from a place of humility. And then there are other people who are have resigned themselves. They have resigned themselves to what they're able to do, right? And so they say, well, actually, you know, I'm not religious, so I pray whenever I can, whenever I'm able to. And even on that one topic, it shows it's not just the words, but the attitude towards the importance of salah is revealed, right? Which is that I'm not doing all of them, but I'm working. I hope that I'll be able to.
I didn't put
As
it on.
opposed to someone who
Okay.
has resigned themselves, or someone who says, well, actually, it's very hard to perform the salah. Some people start to convince themselves that it's not possible with a work day.
Okay.
So lofty aspirationals, having these higher himam aliyah, they're only lofty if you have resigned yourself to obey that which your nafs calls you to do. If you're goal oriented, then it's easy to sacrifice, because there's a difference between happiness, right, a momentary or fleeting moment of joy, and true contentment. Right? Happiness, if we define happiness, there's lots of different ways to define it. If we say that that's a moment of joy, that is not true happiness. True happiness cannot be attained by anything other than religion. Why? Because this dunya, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, if the son of Adam was given a mountain of gold, will he be satisfied? No. What will he ask for? What will he demand? What will he make a condition before being happy? He will need a second mountain of gold. Now, some people, they see that as just like tama', like I need more. But I want to go a little bit deeper into the psyche of the human being. Not just, oh, that's a bad character. No, that shows the nature of the dunya is that it cannot be satiated. It will never be enough, because the nafs, once it receives more, it expands its demands. So it's a moving target. It's not like, okay, I will have this much, then I will be happy. Then there's a secondary element, which is that we create conditions. So sometimes we create our own depressions, right? We create our own sadness because we say, well, when this happened, then I'm going to be happy. And then that happens, exactly what we ask for. We pray to Allah, we're so stressed out, we're so anxious, and then we get exactly what, maybe not the time that we want, maybe not exact, but we get everything that we ask for, and then it's a problem. People are sad because they're looking for a job. They get their dream job. As soon as they get their job, they're like, oh, I have the worst boss. Then they dream, oh, I want to get a promotion. Then they get the promotion that they want. Then they have another problem. Oh, but I need a pay increase. Then they wait, and we create new conditions in order for being happy. Then ultimately we realize that this dunya is kasarab. It is like a mirage, right? يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاءً. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, it's in Surah An-Nur, that it is like a mirage in which the person imagines that there's water. You see a river, or it looks so beautiful and so attractive. But once you experience it, it's not real. So those appearances are never going to satiate the human being. That kind of happiness is not what we're talking about. The kind of happiness we're talking about is being in a state of qana'ah, being in a state of contentment. And that contentment does not come from being content with the self. When you are in a state of true happiness and true contentment, who are you happy with? You are happy with where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed you. That means that you are content with the situation that Allah wants you to be in. So as we're going through this hikmah, when we talk about self-satisfaction, we're talking about whether you are satisfied with your own self. The condition of the self, not the situation that you're in. Ar-rida anin nafs. And this requires mastery like anything else. I think many of you might have heard this 10,000 hour rule. Has anyone heard of this? Malcolm Blackwell, I don't know, has anybody read Outliers? I read it like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. It's a very interesting book. Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about the amount of time. He says either it needs like 10 years of mastery or it needs 10,000 hours of intense practice. And he focuses especially on musicians, that in order to master anything that requires complex skills and materials, playing a violin, being a surgeon, being as good as the best computer programmers, right? Then you need to put in the hours. How many people, they come to different qurra, different reciters of the Quran, right? People, they ask Qari Anas and myself all the time, how do you have such a good Arabic accent? Like there's some kind of secret, we just like, went to this, we ordered something on Amazon. No, we just read the Quran a lot. Come on, this is not rocket science. How do you get good at Quran? You just read it. So if you read the Quran all the time, it's going to come it will flow off of your tongue because you're going to know it better than anything else. You're going to memorize it better than your own phone. Now, I shouldn't say, people don't even know their own phone number nowadays, right? So they need to memorize Quran and improve their memory. Now, there's additional research that's been done that shows that actually deliberate practice, not just the raw hours that matter. You have to train under another master, right? And so Gladwell, he writes in his book, he talks about some studies that what distinguishes one performer from another is not raw talent. There are a few people that have very exceptional talent, but the majority of the best athletes, musicians, scientists, they are the best only because they put the time in order to master that skill. Now, why is it that most people don't get there? People want to be the best. Why do they stop? They stop because they think, well, my pizzeria has the best pizza. There's no pizza in the world that's better. You present them with the best pizza, I think it's from Connecticut, but, or some people, they say New York. Some weird people, they say Chicago. I don't know why. That's not pizza. You eat one slice, you're going to fall asleep. Oh, please don't. Oh no, we have Domino's on the map. Don't tell a New Yorker Domino's pizza. It hurts my heart. The problem is, if you think that your pizza is the best, are you going to improve it? Are you going to experiment? Are you going to try different techniques? Are you going to try different flours? No, you're going to say mine is the best, right? It's the same thing. A lot of people say, oh, my three-pointer is the best, even though there are flaws in their technique, right? You have a skier. That doesn't mean that just because you're top 10 in the world doesn't mean that you can't have a coach. You need somebody to point that out and to improve what you're doing. Now, the jahil that he's talking about is not someone who is completely ignorant. What he's saying is that the ignorant person who is seemingly jahil because they're not a true scholar, they have not done the in-depth study. So it's not like this is an idiot, a person who doesn't know the basics of the religion. But he said that person appears to be ignorant because they are not an in-depth scholar. But what knowledge does this self-satisfied scholar have? That person is not alert. That person is comfortable. That person is not vigilant. That person is not on guard in protecting their iman. And so the alertness, that yaqadha, that wakeful state that you have, that is what makes you vigilant over your khawatir, over your thoughts. Because if your thoughts, it doesn't matter how big of a scholar you are, how much knowledge, how many verses you've memorized, how many hadith you know. But if your shahwa, if your desire is driving your thoughts, and then your khawatir are then driving you to action, that means that your nafs is moving in which direction? Your nafs is moving from one state to a lower state. Now that doesn't mean that it's unrestrained. An-nafs al-lawwama, the one that's self-reproaching, it still has thoughts of sin, right? It's a very rare kind of believer that is not tempted frequently, but it appears reprehensible. So because it's reprehensible to that person, so he restrains himself. Inshallah, I'm just going to take 3 or 4 minutes and then we'll pray Salatul Maghrib, inshallah. In Surah Yusuf, Yusuf alayhi salam, he says, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي. I don't claim myself to be innocent. Did Yusuf alayhi salam do anything wrong? Some people, they misunderstood this, right? Did Yusuf alayhi salam do anything wrong in the Quran? Did he? He was tempted by Imra'atul Aziz. Is he accountable for that? وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا. Allah says in the Quran, he was attracted to her. There's no doubt, crystal clear, 100%. It's mentioned in the Quran. Is he responsible for that? No. But he says, I don't absolve myself, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي, because the reality of the temptation was there. But the temptation did not cause him to seriously entertain any thoughts of actually doing something about it. And so because of that, the reality of the nafs was true, but the action was not prompted by that temptation. But if a person is not vigilant like Yusuf, then what happens? They have that temptation and they're moved towards action. Imam al-Junayd al-Baghdadi, he said, لا تسكن إلى نفسك وإن دام طاعتها لك في طاعة ربك. That even don't ever be negligent over watching your nafs. Even if your outward appearance, if everything that you see, it's all obedience towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be very suspicious. Be very watchful over your nafs. Abu Sulaiman al-Dari, he said, مَا رَضِيتُ عَن نَفْسِي طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ. He said, I did not leave myself to my own nafs for even the blink of an eye. I was watching myself like a hawk. The Salaf, they used to watch themselves in the mirror several times a day, checking themselves. Not like those gym rats, people they post from the gym, right? From different angles. So they're checking themselves. What were they checking out? One of them, he said, I used to check to make sure that I did not see any signs of darkness. The last thing we'll mention before we pray Salat al-Maghrib, and we'll do the adhkar and questions after Salat al-Maghrib, is the concept of suhbah. The concept of suhbah is that we have to be in majalis al-dhikr. We have to be in gatherings of dhikr, of remembrance of Allah, of learning, of akhlaq al-Muhammadiyya, of the Muhammadan character. You can't be satisfied with the company of ignorant people. You have to be around people who are working on themselves, who are actively treading the path. It doesn't matter whether they're more knowledgeable than you. Even if they lack knowledge in the sacred law, their humbleness will restrain them from committing errors. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses us with al-thabat, with firmness, بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة, that of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ground us with that reality, and may He surround us with the company that will keep us connected towards Him. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم. For those that are following online, go ahead and pray your own Salat al-Maghrib and then continue and join with us afterwards.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
So, between the lines, close all the gaps.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. Qad qamat as-salah, qad qamat as-salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله. والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. We'll give everybody a couple minutes to pray their sunnah and then we'll do the adhkar and questions. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So one of the things that we learn from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam immediately following the salah, other than the famous tasbih of saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, is that we do istighfar immediately following the salah. That might seem peculiar. Why is it that the first thing we do right after completing salah is istighfar? We just did an act of worship. Why? Forgiveness, but we can ask forgiveness anytime. Why after we just did a good thing? Normally you do istighfar after you did something wrong, but you didn't do anything wrong in the salah, did you? So the istighfar that you do after the salah is different from the istighfar. It has to be different from the istighfar that we do as part of tawbah, right? What is the istighfar after the salah? The one for tawbah we know. Yes. Yes. So these are two aspects. So the first one is in case if you made any mistakes in your salah, that's number one. And number two is that no matter which worship we offer, it will always be deficient. And so either we made a mistake or it was inadequate. Anything that we do, it's not any. Can we even praise? Like we say, لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. One of the things we say in praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, how can I even begin to articulate praises of you, Allah? You are as you have described yourself. So that means that words fall short, right? And our ibadah falls short. Can we thank Allah as we should thank Him? Can we glorify Him as we should glorify Him? Can we appreciate Him as we should appreciate? So no matter what, even in the absence of a sin or a mistake, istighfar is due because of our own inadequacy. So with that kind of humility, the reason I mention this is because today's topic is about dissatisfaction of the soul. Recognizing that there is no way that our a'mal, our good deeds would be enough to attain Allah's mercy, and therefore we have to seek it on its own. We have to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as itself. So we do istighfar as a way of takhliyah, of removing our hearts from ego, of the nafs, of shaitani ahwa, of desires and whispers from the shaitan, the worries of other people, letting all of that negativity behind. So we'll begin with the simple istighfar. Astaghfirullah min kulli dhanbin wa atubu ilayh. 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 And then we'll say our usual. أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله. أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله. أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله. أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله. أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله. أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله. أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله أستغفر الله تبت إلى الله ونهيت قلبي عما سوى الله. This is removing all of that negative thoughts. So that way, when we mention Allah's name, now the heart is in an empty state, in a peaceful state. Then the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reverberate, not only reverberating in the room, in the halls of this masjid, but they reverberate in the walls and the chambers of your heart. That you feel it in the depths of your soul, in your nafs, in who you are, in your heart, and in your ruh, on the level of the soul. So with that in mind, that tahliya, that beautification, right, with that frame of reference, then we'll join each other in saying, Hasbi Allah. حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل 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 حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. And then we praise the word Subhanallah means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sublime and transcendent, that He is above and free from every flaw and every defect and every worldly characteristic, Jalla Jalaluhu. So we'll say the one that we learned last month, Subhanallah wa bihamdi, adada khalqihi, wa rida nafsihi, wa zinata arshi, wa midada kalimati. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, adada khalqihi, wa rida nafsihi, wa zinata arshi, wa midada kalimati. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, adada khalqihi, ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. Allah says, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. So we mentioned some of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك أستغيث يا حي يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك أستغيث 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 يا حنان يا الله 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 يا منان 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 يا الله. The best of all speech is that of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, the statement of Tawheed, the affirmation of Tawheed, not only in belief, but in the matter of the heart, is to allow only the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hold you rather than the love or attachment with anything else. So with that frame of mind, join me in saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Well, just the first part for now. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. لا إله إلا الله 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 حسبي ربي جل الله ما في قلبي غير الله نور محمد صلى الله لا إله إلا الله حسبي ربي جل الله ما في قلبي غير الله نور محمد صلى الله لا إله إلا الله حسبي ربي جل الله ما في قلبي غير الله نور محمد صلى الله لا إله إلا الله حسبي ربي جل الله ما في قلبي غير الله نور محمد صلى الله لا إله إلا الله حسبي ربي جل الله ما في قلبي غير الله نور محمد صلى الله لا إله إلا الله الله حي 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 Allah Hay, Allah Hay, Allah, 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 La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Barakallah feekum. May Allah keep our tongues moist with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our hearts firm and anchored by the true remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the remembrance of the heart, not that of the tongue. We can take some questions, and online is fine as well. Yes, go ahead.
You have a friend that you know kind of fits the description of self-content and could potentially be like a bad influence, but they tell you that you're a good influence on them. What's
Okay.
kind of the balance of
Okay, so I'm going to repeat it for those listening. The question, and I think this is a common situation, so it's very beneficial, which is that what about a friend who kind of fits that description of the one who's self-content, but that person kind of attaches themselves to you or wants to be influenced by you because they tell you that you're good influence on them. Now, this is a different category from al-jalis as-su. So the Prophet ﷺ in the famous hadith in which he talks about the good companion being the one like kahamili misk, like kaba'i misk, like the one who is selling musk, right? And either you'll buy some or you'll receive some as a gift, or you'll be affected. I mean, indirectly you're going to be influenced by that good friend. So that's something that we want to do. And then he talks about the bad friend. Now we're finding somebody that's in between, right? Which that person is not really a bad influence, right? But that person is not going to allow you to move forward. You know how sometimes you want to change? A lot of people, and this is very common, where they get to a point in their life in which they are not living for other people. You get to the point where you're influenced by your community and your friends, and then you want to move forward, but then there are people who kind of hold you back. And they kind of, oh, do you think you're better than us now, or you're trying to be different? Who are you trying to? You're trying. So they will tell you that you're trying to be something that you're not. And the irony is that actually you're returning back to who you are, right? Because Abdullah, being the close servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not something foreign. It's actually the most familiar thing. It's actually why we were created. And many of you have heard me say before that the earth was created for us, but we were not created for the earth. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this world just for the human being. Right? Yes, there were dinosaurs and other things that happened, but it was just for us, right? But we were not created for this earth. Allah did not intend for us to be here forever, right? And that's actually, spoiler alert, this is going to be the topic of Jum'ah, inshallah, Friday. So we're going to go down the same, because it's back to school khutbah, right? So even, can we eat raw meat? We can't. We have to cook it. Allah created the weather. Are we safe? Can we live out in the weather? No. We need shelter. I mean, everything about the human being. I mean, we cut so easily. I just had a slip the other day. I was in the hospital and had all these stitches and still taking forever to recover. And I was like, subhanAllah, like it took almost nothing for me to get this banged up. I was like, what if I had like a serious accident? Then what would happen? So we're so fragile. And it shows that we were not really created for this world. Allah created us for the akhirah. So if you're surrounded by such people who keep kind of holding you back, then it's a negative effect. But it sounds like the scenario that you described is not that. It sounds like somebody that wants to not be self-satisfied. And the reason I think that person doesn't fit the description, even though they fit some of the description, is because they said, you are a good influence on me. A self-satisfied person would never make that statement. You follow me? Because she's saying that I want to spend time around you because I admire you, I want to be more like you. Well, an egotistical person will never say that. Egotistical person will be so satisfied, they want to be the center of attention. So it's inconducive. So that means that that person has a mixture of qualities in which they're kind of stuck in terms of who they are, which all of us to some extent are like that. And then there are other parts of them where they want to progress. But that is not going to be the kind of friend. So that's not a friend that you necessarily need to separate yourself from, because that's not holding you back. But that is not the friend that is going to allow you to get to the next phase, right? So this more that person is more in the neutral zone. Plus, the other thing is that by being in the environment, you start to also experience different realities. So when you're with people who their entire, it's not like, oh, they went to the masjid, they prayed, and then they're like days, there's like their mundane day, and then it's punctuated by periods of worship. You'll experience the company of people in which the entirety of their existence is about Allah. And then it's only punctuated by moments of worldliness. So just by experiencing that, and like I've spent so much time with people like that, that it's second nature. But like if you grew up in Potomac, Maryland, and you just kind of hung out with the families that you know growing up, or wherever it is, Baltimore, D.C., or Gaithersburg, I don't know, wherever, Bethesda, and you just kind of go with the flow, you may not experience such people. So you may not, so like spirituality is still maybe something theoretical, that like, oh, that means like meditation and being at peace. But that higher level of spirituality, of connection, of ma'rifah, of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it only may exist in some of the people who are gathered here or listening. Online, it only exists in a theoretical sense. But when you see it actualized, then it actually seems that much more tangible, and it's going to make you feel like, it's like you see that fruit and you're like, oh, I can reach it. Like when we talk about wilaya, being the friend of Allah, for so many people, they laugh. They're like, I get the question all the time, are there still awliya? Of course. There may be awliya even within our own communities. Until the day of judgment, until the very end, they will be the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After the prophets, he's not going to leave the world without guidance and good influence. So there will always be such people, but gems are hidden. Gems are always going to be hidden. They're not going to be the loudest at the party. They're not going to be in your face. They're not necessarily going to be the one with the sound bites and the posts on social media. But for the one who looks for treasures, they find those treasures. So yeah, so that's the thing. Sometimes people, they feel like when they want to move forward religiously and spiritually, that they need to cut ties with some acquaintances, friends, family that they have. And in some cases, that's necessary. But in most cases, it's more about finding the people who can help you rather than cutting people off, right? Because being isolated is also not good. Because then you get this sense of like, you put your, like that self-righteousness, because then you think, oh, holier than thou, that I'm so pious, I'm so religion, I'm in khalwa, I'm in isolation, I'm alone with Allah. And there are people who've gone crazy, who had very, very good intentions and very clean hearts, but because they weren't grounded, right? They lost themselves and they thought like, oh, Allah is speaking to me. No, it could be shaitan, or it could be your own nafs. So rather than falling in love with Allah, which is what the whole thing is about, who did they fall in love with? They fell in love with themselves. So that's the danger, and so that's why being, I think, surrounding yourself with good people is very important. And sometimes you have to get beyond the cultural barriers, you have to get beyond the geographical barriers, and then you see that. And we're lucky because we're in the DMV, so you only need to go 15-20 minutes and you're going to uncover amazing people once you seek them out. Any other questions? Hmm. Sure. So this is not one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, but this is in the early generation. So he said that I used to, every time I passed the mirror, I would look at myself in the mirror, and he's not checking him out to see if he's good, but rather he wants to make sure, he wants to stay vigilant that he didn't see any signs of darkness, right? And this is the thing. And and when we think of darkness and brightness, um, you know, when you spend a lot of time with pious people, their smiles are just natural. They're effortless. They're people, it's like people read these books, like how to win the argument, how to like win people and make people love you, right? And like all these, and then relationship books about how to like how to make everybody love you. But it's so fake. And people see through that. Because then it feels like somebody's trying to manipulate you, right? And people are intelligent. They can understand that. But the person who's close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they say salam to you, they're not just saying a greeting. They're not playing a recorder. They're like, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be to you. I want good. Their salam is a dua. That might be, they say Assalamu alaikum. The angels might say Ameen. Because they really in their heart is so clean, they only want good things for you. So those people, when they were looking at the mirror, so he wanted to make sure that there were no signs. That's how vigilant he was. That he wanted to make sure that there were no signs that he was moving away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the fact that he was checking it, and also that he's so aware of himself that he thinks that he would observe that, we're so removed from that reality. Many of us, when he's looking, he's not necessarily looking at what he thinks of himself. He's concerned with how Allah sees him. And many of us, when we check ourselves out in the mirror, when do we check? All right, come on, real talk. When do we check the mirror? When we leave the house. Thank you, sister, telling me the truth. Usually people don't. We all do it. Male, female, doesn't matter. Kids, everybody does it. They check the mirror before they leave the house. Why? Because we care what people think, right? And I'm not saying like don't care what people think. I'm just saying care more about Allah than what people think. Because to get to that level where you really don't care what anybody thinks, we're so far away from that reality, But inshallah, we'll get there. Yeah. Any others? All right. Alhamdulillah. Did you want to say something? Jazakallah khairan. May Allah accept from all of us, increase us in knowledge, that which is beneficial, purify our hearts, our tongues, and all of our actions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us in Jannah as He gathered us in this worldly life. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa ja'al tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma wa la taj'al baynana wa la minna shaqiyan wa la mahruma. Barakallahu feekum. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the week. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Afwan.